Hello, everybody. For some reason, my camera is so far zoomed out that oh, and let me pull this down so it doesn't look like I'm looking up. Anyway, that looks bizarre. You guys can see all my stuff. And it's not quite straight either, is it? Okay. All right. I hope everybody is all right. We are back from Arizona, and my mind isn't 100% yet. The biggest thing that goes away when I'm tired like that is searching for words. I'm not very good at talking anyway. I know that's what I do for a living, right? A lot of with the teaching, you have to talk. And I do a lot of teaching. The videos, you got to talk. I do a lot of talking on the videos. And yes, sometimes my mind is just turned off. I can't think of the words. I can still play the notes. Can't think of the words. Right? Anyway, anybody got any questions to get us started with? I can open up my comments. There have been some comments lately. And if we don't get any questions, I'll just stream through the comments real quick and see if there's anything to answer there. So here are the comments. Got a lot of comments lately. So mostly compliment stuff. Okay, there's just one long one, and I don't think it's something I can answer here. So yes, we're stuck. We need questions. I can tell you about stuff, but it doesn't work so well to have a Q and A without the A. I mean, without the Q. I can give the A, but I need some Qs. Let me see. What can I come up with? Oh, let me give you the news. I've got a steady gig, kind of. I don't normally do steady gigs, but I've got now a Thursday night gig, and maybe someday I'll put up a camera or something and post a video or something of us playing. It's a jazz trio gig, believe it or not. That's nice. It's at the Intercontinental Hotel on Main Street in the medical center area. On Thursdays, 5 to 7, in the lobby of the hotel. If you walk into the lobby, you'll hear us. We're around the corner. So that's something. I don't normally have a regular gig that people can come out to hear. Most of my gigs throughout my whole career have been private, which is kind of cool. You know, that's the best thing about private stuff is it pays better. That's always been the case. Like you do somebody's wedding, you do a corporate party, stuff like that. That always pays better than playing at a jazz club. And sometimes you get to play jazz stuff at the corporate party or whatever. I've been thinking about doing a series of videos on, I hope you guys can hear me. I've been thinking about doing a series of videos on the, okay, I'm probably using the wrong mic. That would be funny. Anyway, so a series of videos on the business side, because I do. It's not that I have a great approach to the business. I have a unique approach to the business. I think that's more valuable than a great approach, right? I'm not going to help you make millions of dollars, but what I do teach on the business side has value. And it would be like a series, like what we did with the stage fright series, what we did with the um, culture series, the sight reading series. It would be a series like that. And um, yeah, so this is actually bizarre. I don't understand why there's no. I don't understand why there's no questions coming in. This is like never happened like this. Maybe the sound is turned off. Hello, Karen. I can't find this Q and A through your website, only through the WhatsApp. Only one I see is from last week. That's really weird. Hello, Gabrielle. Nice to see you. Okay, well, thanks for the input, Karen. So, what do you guys think? Do you think a a series about doing music business, the trumpet business, would be beneficial? I know that most of the people that watch my videos are not pros, but you don't have to be a pro to to benefit from understanding how the business works. Does that make sense? So yeah, maybe that's what's going on right now. Maybe people aren't seeing. I think I'm on the wrong microphone. Let me see here. I wonder if I can change it in the middle. So I'm going to tap on the microphone. You guys tell me if it's tapping. That's probably not, because I'd have a vague memory of not changing the mic. All right. Anyway, so what else can we talk about? I've got some new students coming in. That's always exciting. Um, what else? And the gigs are picking up. I'm looking at a season coming up where I'm going to be busier than I've been in 6 years almost. No, it's been 6 years since I was that busy. That used to be normal life, and then things started slowing down in 2016 for a variety of reasons. And now it looks like things are shaping up to be a lot busier than they used to be, which is good. We like busy. Busy pays the bills, right? All right. So that's really weird that you couldn't see it on the website. I thought I added it to the Q and A. Oh, do you know what happened? It's because I accidentally, when I was saving it, I accidentally clicked go live. And so there was a like 7 second. Yeah, that's my fault, Karen. I see that now. because I did all the steps that I'm supposed to do, and then I clicked the wrong button, and I had to start over again, and I was in a hurry, and I didn't put it in the playlist, and that's how that works. It goes into the playlist. Gabriel says, Eddie, I played my trumpet outside in the garden, and it's completely different from inside. How can I manage this? You know, I keep going back to all of that stuff, everything that's of that nature. I keep going to that famous, or I should say infamous story, and it's anecdotal. I'm not going to say who it was because actually it's kind of not flattering. It is very funny. I might have told you guys this before. There was this guy who always played drunk, and the fellow musicians came up to him and said, "Man, you sound so great and you always play drunk. How do you do that?" And he goes, "It's simple. I practice drunk." and I don't drink, I don't do drugs or anything like that. In telling that story, I'm not suggesting people should drink, but the message behind that story is that whatever it is that you're uncomfortable performing under, whatever situation you're uncomfortable performing under, that's the situation you should be practicing under. So I think the best way to deal with that is to just spend more time doing it. I used to go up into the mountains in El Paso, and I'd climb up in the mountains with my trumpet. Same bag exactly as the one I've been carrying around lately. Where is it? Oh, it's in the other room. I have a single trumpet bag. That's my double right there. I have a single bag that I got in, I think, 1980. And I put my trumpet in there. I'd hike up into the mountains. I'd hang my feet over the side of a cliff. Really, I'm not exaggerating. I'd hang my feet over the side of a cliff, and I'll play some improvised melodies out there. So I've spent so much time playing outside. It's something that I actually enjoy doing. You don't get any feedback from the other, people. I remember my uncle. Now you guys met my uncle last week. My uncle, in those lessons that he gave me when I moved, didn't move, visited him in Vermont. Um, he told me to play enough so that the sound bounces off the other side of the trees and back. Now, he said that happened. I never heard a bounce, right? Because there's nothing out there. The trees will absorb the sound. He said he heard it. That's fine. I'm not saying it's not true. The way I remember, I was on the patio, and he ran down. There was a it was a house out in the country. We're on the patio. He ran down to a pond that was, I don't know, about 30 yards, maybe 50 yards away from the house. Now I was little, it might have been shorter than that. And then he hollered at me, louder, louder. I want to hear it bounce off the other side, right? Um, and the trees, I think, were twice that distance, so maybe 100 yards to the trees. Remember, I was like seventh grade or something like that, maybe fifth grade. I don't remember. Um, and So yes, he might have heard a bounce maybe off of the pond. I don't know. Uh, but to me, that kind of playing is nice because there's no bounce. You don't have an immediate feedback. So all you're hearing is what comes out of the bill. And for me, because I've done so much of that kind of playing, that's actually kind of pleasant, especially to someone who doesn't have, I have a hearing loss. I can't really hear the way other people hear. So So yes, that's how I see it. Is just spend more time doing it, and not necessarily in a practice way, right? I started doing public free improvisation by myself, solo stuff. I guess it was after that. What's his name? The Tim Higgins. There was a Tim Higgins masterclass when I was still teaching at HSPVA. That's the High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. He was a guest. He comes over and he's talking about free improv. And at that time, I don't know if it's changed since then. At that time, he was recommending that students should practice uh, 30 minutes of just free improv per day. And now, when he said that, I had already been doing since high school free improv, like up in the mountains, out in the desert. Um, I have we still have a family friend in El Paso, and she says there's legends about trumpet playing coming out of the mountains and out of the desert. So, and she knows that's me because I'm the one that used to climb up there and do that. So there's legends of me about me playing trumpet up in there in the mountains. Um, but yes, I've been doing that since high school. And normally when I warm up, I do a free improvisation. I only made it public after he said you should do that. It just made me realize, I can actually do this in public because he demonstrated it. He's in front of an audience and he's doing what I've been doing up in the mountains. And I thought, you know what, I could do this. I can really make this work. So I started making those free improvisation recordings, but it's not quite the same, right? Because the free improvisations that I was doing previously were in the mountain and there was no reverb. There was it was very in the music world we call it dead. Dead as in, or not dead, what am I saying? Dry. It's dry. Something that has a lot of reverb is wet. Something that has no reverb is dry. And all the places I've ever done, it's always been dry, dry, dry outside. And the reason is there's nothing for the sound to bounce from. Just about everything outside absorbs sound. The exception, I told you I'm having trouble with words. The exception to that, of course, is if you're on one side of a valley and there's a cliff on the other side, you can bounce the sound that way. But that's so far away you're going to get an echo, not a reverb. Does that make sense? So yes, most things outside absorb sound. They don't bounce the sound. They don't reflect the sound. Karen says, when I was outside, my third valve stuck. There's a thing like never happened before. Fortunately, it loosened on its own. Well, you're asking any ideas why did it get stuck or why did it loosen up? I can't tell you about why it gets loosened up, but I can tell you that there's things that happen outside. The temperature changes, that's one thing. So when the temperature changes, we have to keep in mind that the valve itself and the casing that the valve is inside are not made of the same exact metal. So when there are temperature changes, one is going to expand, the other one's going to shrink, depending on, you know. Now, you can have a situation where the metal shrinks enough. I think that's when it's cold, it gets smaller. I think when it's uh, hot, it gets bigger. So there's that. And then also outside, you're going to have more dirt. So you can have, things like pollen, and you don't even have to let your horn get close to the dirt itself. The stuff is floating in the air. And yes, there's some of that inside too. I'm not saying. It's just that it's a dirtier environment outside. That's, that's one of those subjects. I don't want to sound like got all the answers. But that's what makes sense to me. Anyway, what else? These Q and A's tend to have a up and down pattern in terms of how many people show up, and that's okay. I just want to make sure that I'm here so that people can get their questions answered. What else do you guys got? So when a valve, this is once again, I'm not saying this from the perspective of I know all things. When a valve sticks sometimes and doesn't stick sometimes, that's almost always dirt. There's dirt in the valve, between the valve and the valve casing. And if you, what I do is I will rinse the horn out. I put the horn upside down under the sink. I hold it like this so that this slide doesn't pop out. I put my pinky in here so the slide doesn't pop out. Well, not my pinky. Now that I'm doing it, I can feel this is how I hold it, right? And then the water comes in this way. I do this to my valves. Then I'll do one valve at a time. This is all while the water's flowing through. Right? I'm doing this, and then all the valves together again. And then I'll turn it around quickly. And by the way, it doesn't have the mouthpiece. If you do the mouthpiece, it'll overflow. I turn it back around and I blow all the water out. Once again, doing this. Then, once I'm sure I get the water out, I will take spitballs and push the spitball through. I'll do it 2 or 3 times open, 2 or 3 times with all 3 valves. Spitball, spitball, spitball. Okay. Then I will rinse it again one more time. Same thing like I just did. Put it under the sink, all the valves, then one valve at a time. And when I do the one valve at a time, when I move on to the next one, I hold the other one down. And the next one, I hold the other one down. And then I let it run like that for a while. That flushes all that stuff out. Then I turn it back around and I flush all the water back out again. I've never had a sticky valve survive that, right? It's not going to be sticky again after that. Now, you have to oil your valves immediately after that so that you don't have issues with rust and stuff. The trumpet will rust faster that way. But if you think about it, we're constantly putting damp, warm air through the horn anyway. It's going to rust. Here in Houston, I don't think you're gonna get around that, especially in Houston, right? Karen says, is it okay to practice music before your exercises and the 20 tonalization studies? It's okay. I'm going with precisely what you said. Is it okay? Yes, it's okay. Is it ideal? It's not ideal. There's times when I do it because my day before got flipped over. I want to finish yesterday's work first, and then I will do today's work. There are times when I do that, but it's not ideal. If you have a reason to do it that way, then you do it that way. The biggest thing is to be organized with it, right? The biggest thing now to do it that way every single day is now how much. Let's put it in perspective. How much of a problem is it to do it that way every day? It's a tiny problem, but that's the way I teach, right? Even if you have enough of these tiny problems, it ends up being a big problem. Right? So we want to get rid of as many of those tiny problems as we can, and we want to be practicing in the most beneficial way as possible, taking all of the tiny problem variables out. And, it reminds me of what my father taught me. I used to work on my own cars. I still do. I just don't have as much time to do that stuff as I used to. Um, and the cars have changed so much. Last time I took the car in to get it fixed, they changed two parts that I didn't even know existed. That's how much cars have changed. So it was a camshaft sensor of some sort, which I didn't even know existed. I've changed all kinds of sensors in my career, um, my life, and I never heard of those. But anyway, my dad would tell me, always make sure the car is tuned up first before you try to diagnose a problem. And that makes all the sense in the world. Well, now he taught me that before they had all these fancy computer things going, right? So you want to make sure it's tuned up so the timing is right, the new spark plugs, all of that stuff. You want all that to be right before you diagnose the car, because you might be replacing stuff that doesn't need to be replaced because you had bad spark plugs or something. And I think the way we diagnose problems on the trumpet is greatly simplified when we have things going according to what we know works. If you come in and say, I've been doing your routine, and then after that I do the music, then if something's still wrong, we can do more to find it. But the variable of doing the music first and then the piece of music, I mean the exercises after that, that's a different variable. Now remember, the exercises have a warm-up built into them. So if you do start with the music, then you need to do a warm-up first. Remind me in your next lesson, I have what I call the shortest routine. It's a warm-up, but that follows the pyramid structure, but it's only 2 pages of exercises. And that will help you, take some of those variables out. But yes, one of the reasons we want the routine to be first is so that you're warmed up before you play the other stuff. Gabriel says, Eddie, if I would try some very easy improv, where should I start? Well, that's a very nice question. I teach what I call an improvisation expansion. It's just like the scale expansion, except now you're improvising. And I generally start with the key of C, and we'll start on F. We're not starting on C, but it's the key of C, right? So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And so I'm going to give a demonstration of it. We're just going to improvise on F. We're going to play something that sounds good to us, just playing F. I'm not going to make it a jazz thing for now. I'm just going to play F, something maybe kind of classical. So by improvising on only one note, you take the note variable out, and now you can concentrate on being more creative with the rhythm. Remember, in improvisation, rhythm is more important than notes. A lot of people don't get that because of the way improvisation is taught. It's always note-centric, which is incorrect. Whether it's jazz or any other kind of music, improvisation is rhythm-centric. Now, I know that if someone listens to some of my jazz stuff, they're going to hear some note-centric improvisation. I'm trying not to play like that. There's a lot of stuff when I started doing the free improv in a performance setting. There's a lot of stuff when I started editing the videos that I realized I wasn't doing in my jazz improv. It's actually kind of hard to do in the jazz improv because, for me, because I was taught this note-centric nonsense. Okay, so let's go to the next step. We're going to add now G to our improvisation. Okay, once again, rhythm-centric. What I'm playing is more rhythmically rich than it is note-rich. By design, right? We're only playing 2 notes. Now, let's add another note. Let's add E. We're not going to go to A because that's going to make it sound like we're in a different key. Okay, then we're going to add D. Okay, then we can add A now because now it's not going to sound like we're in F. Okay, it's going to sound more like a D Dorian kind of thing. So we're going to add A. Woohoo! That's like Renaissance music. Now let's add the B natural to make it truly Dorian. Okay, now we're going to add C at the top. That still sounds kind of Dorian. Now, for those that don't know what Dorian is the second mode of the major scale. That's how we say it as jazz players. It actually goes back to ancient history. Doria is I believe, a Greek city. This is how we were taught in college, right? And the Dorian scale is supposed to be the scale that they were using for music in ancient history, right? I seriously doubt that what we play today has anything to do with that. But that's over time, that's how this came to be the Dorian scale. It's basically the C major scale starting on D, F, G, A, B, C, D. I'm singing the wrong note. Sorry about that. That's the D Dorian minor. Okay. Now let's make it C major because we're going to add the bottom C. And you just continue that way. So I've never had a student that couldn't improvise if they started like that. Everyone can improvise if you start with this improvisation expansion. And it doesn't matter what style, you can do it with jazz, you can do it with classical, you can do it with blues. Now, with the blues, you would want to do different notes from what I just did. But the idea is to start with one note, then two notes, three notes, and just keep expanding until you have a lot of that. That is the best way to get started with the improv. There's more to improv than just that. For example, notice that I repeat a lot of stuff when I'm improvising. Gail Cabrillo says, that was wonderful. I think I will get stuck on the F. I do repeat a lot of stuff when I'm improvising. There is a reason for that. Good music repeats. And there's academic literature that goes into the philosophy and the theory about why it repeats. Okay, the bottom line is whether or not those people are correct or incorrect, music does repeat. Okay, Gabriel says it seems so easy made by you. Well, that's what I'm trying to say is I've been doing this on a regular basis since actually probably since 1979. And so in a way it is easy. It kind of, I'll tell you what, when I make those videos and I'm thinking about starting again, that whole improv video thing became a source of disappointment for me because I wanted to start including other people and having some group improvisation like duos, maybe a trio, and maybe even doing some small ensemble stuff. I just can't get people to come over and do that with me. So I did, I think, one or two with my son, which is kind of nice, you know. Those, if you go to my free improv channel, not channel, what do you call it? Playlist, my free improv playlist. One of those on there is with my son, and there's some others that I put on the playlist that come from my albums. If those are still there, they might not actually be still there anymore. Let me look. There's one reason why I might have taken those off, and that would be if I was trying to make the primary playlist. They have this thing in YouTube where you can make a playlist primary. No, okay, so they're on there. There are some that I did with other musicians at the very beginning of the playlist, which is actually the very end because I got it in backwards order. So number 100 is at the beginning. So at the end are the first improvisations that I did. So yes, that's how many videos? That's 105 videos of free improvisation. Now I forget what we were talking about. So Gabrielle asks, is it okay with the rotary? I think it is, or do I need perinet? I don't know what that is. If you're talking about the free improvisation, you can do that on any instrument. I have a flute that I don't even know how to play that I do free improv on. Let me grab it. I haven't played this in a while. It was a gift from a student who actually plays these things professionally. Oh, that's why. Okay. Oh, too much. It's an Indian flute, like American Indian. Wow, it's like completely. You can do it on any instrument you want. So you can. Gabrielle says that is gorgeous, Sue Wei. Yeah. So I've spent a nice bit of time just I've learned some of the notes, but the ones where you switch fingerings, I'm not so good at. I can do up and down, but I'm not so good at the. That said, you can actually do stuff like that, and it actually sounds okay. So, but yeah, improvisation. I don't know. The more you do of the improvisation, the more it just becomes like talking. You can do it on piano. Uh, you can, for all that, you can actually put water in glasses and hit it with the spoon and improvise that way. It doesn't have to be. That's the thing about free improvisation is it's free. There's no limitations to what you can do. The only reason we have limitations on the exercise is because just like what they teach you in creative writing, sometimes free is overwhelming. Sometimes you need to have some limitations so that you can let your mind go. So if we have just one note, that takes out a lot of the intimidation of improvisation. So when we're actually truly improvising, there's no limit to notes. There's no limit to whether the note should be tuned properly or not. What you do is what you do. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. And here's the thing, the more you do free improvisation, the more stuff that you learned in other contexts gets pulled into what you're doing. I didn't when I started that last improv. Now it wasn't the best improv I ever did. That's the other thing about improv is you have to expect that about 60% of it's going to be terrible. That's how it works. About 60% of your free improv is going to be terrible. Other people might not think it's terrible. You're going to think it's terrible. And and the reason why you think it's terrible is because you know what you meant to do and you know you didn't pull it off. What comes out, nobody can hear in your mind what you meant to do. All they hear is what actually came out, not the same thing. So in your own mind, in your own head, in your own heart, you see a discrepancy between what you meant to do and what came out. They don't have that discrepancy. Your audience doesn't have that. Your audience only has the final product. Okay, so I say at least 60% of what I play is not satisfying to me. I choose, when I make the video, I choose the best part out of, sometimes it takes me over 30 minutes to create a 5-minute video. I'll shoot for 30 minutes and then I'll clip whatever it is that sounded good to, at least passable. I almost said good to me. It doesn't sound good to me. I can hear all of the stuff that's wrong with it because it's still fresh in my head. Now, I'll tell you this. If I, like that playlist that I was talking about, if I go back to that and listen to it, a lot of the stuff that didn't sound good to me then might sound good to me now just because I'm not hearing anymore what it was I intended to play. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So yes, it's a big deal. And I know I'm on a tangent. I'm trying to get back to where I was. Oh, talking about the freedom. Whatever musical thoughts that you have, what it can't be is just notes. You have a musical thought, you execute the thought. You have a musical thought, you execute the thought. It's not just a barfing up of notes like that. Even the stuff that sounds like someone, I've had people accuse me not of barfing up notes, but of barfing. The guy, what did he exactly say? He said, "I had diarrhea of the keyboard." Yes, so Gabriel says that's why I was discouraged when I tried it was so bad. That's in your own head. And you have to learn to make a distinction between what you meant to play and what actually came out. A lot of times when people say, "Oh, that was awful," that they're only hearing according to what they meant to play. So anyway, if you there have been times when I would play something that sounds like on the surface just a bunch of notes. Some of those improvs that I did, there's a thing that I can do with my fingers because I've been doing the tonalization studies now since 85, I think. I think it was in 85, either 84 or 85 when I made up those exercises. And saying I made them up is a little bit untrue. What I did is I took exercises and combined them into one exercise. So they are my exercises. They did not exist before I created them, but they are heavily influenced by other exercises. All right. But because I've been doing that for so long on all kinds of different scales, not just the major scale, there's this thing that I can do where it's like almost like I don't mean to be like, this would offend some jazz players. It's almost like John Coltrane's sheets of sound stuff, where I go so fast with the scale stuff that really, if someone were to write that and say, "Here, play this," there's no way I could ever play it. Gabriel says, "Is there any skill which we should not train?" Okay, let's talk about that. That's a good question. You know, now that I'm getting older, I used to think, because I like completeness. I like when you do all of it. Uh, Um, and my objective up until about a couple years ago was to learn every skill as well as I know as the major skills. And another thing that falls in the same category is trumpet books. I wanted to have every trumpet book. Um, Trumpet videos. I wanted to watch every video and take notes. This is just not practical. It doesn't work. I'm almost 60 years old, and I'm only now figuring out that you can't do it all. So yes, there are some that you should not train. I think more important, you should train the skills in a specific order. So you start with the major skills. The next skills should be, let's say chromatic should be next. After chromatic, let's say this is what I do with my students, either the harmonic minor or the pentatonic scales as the third set of scales, right? And why would we make that? The jazz people need the pentatonic more than they need the harmonic minor. So I will have my jazz students go next to pentatonic. Now, both students are going to do both sets, but the classical player will not get to the pentatonic stuff until later. So yes, there should be an order of scales. In fact, I think I have a video that talks about that. I might. If I don't, I should make one. So which ones should you not train? You know, I do this double harmonic thing. It's some people call it a Persian minor. I actually played that in my improvisation just now. Um, the only reason I'm still practicing that skill is because I learned it before I made this decision not to learn everything. Okay. Now, in terms of like, should you learn every key? That I actually think you should learn every key. There's no reason not to not do, like, if you're going to do the pentatonics, do the pentatonics in every key. Don't skip any of those. Karen says, no wonder it takes me so long to do the tonalization studies. I go much slower. Breathing exercise suggestions. So going slow on the tonalization studies is a good thing, not a bad thing. I'll show you how fast I do them. Now, what I do a lot of times in the lessons is go too fast on purpose because I don't want to waste their time. That's about as fast as I go. I've been doing them since 1985-ish, and I don't do them any faster than that, except in the students' lessons. Now, breathing exercises. I used to not do breathing stuff. I thought it was a waste of time. But I've been working on breathing stuff outside of the trumpet. The first thing I would say, I'm actually thinking about now beginning to teach this. I've only been doing it myself for a couple weeks. No, maybe a month now, where I breathe through my nose for everything. And the reason why is because I've been doing that outside of the trumpet. I'm trying to breathe through. It's just so much healthier to breathe through your nose than it is to breathe through your mouth. there's stuff the medical stuff that comes into play when we breathe through our nose that's very important. And I've been beginning to do that now. As far as how it applies to the trumpet, I can only tell you what I've been doing so far, right? If I'm doing, you're supposed to rest as long as you play, right? So let's say we're doing I'm just going to make this up because I have the book right here. Let's say I'm doing the chops express, and let's say I'm doing the long tones. This looks like the apprentice long tones. So I'm going to breathe through my nose and I'm going to play. So what I'm doing, and I abbreviated some of those long notes so I wouldn't waste time here. What I'm doing is after I finish the exercise, I exhale. I don't immediately inhale, and I'm exhaling through my nose. Once I'm exhaled, and the horn came off, I accidentally left it on. That was not intentional. Okay, so you play, you pull the horn off, and you breathe the rest of the air through your nose so that you empty your lungs. Then you breathe back in and start the next one. Then when you're done with the exercise, let your air out again, and then breathe in through your nose again, and then out for the next exercise. I've been doing it that way now about a month. It's just short of a month. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead. Karen says, I'm asking because I want to play longer without taking a breath. That's something different. I'm sorry. So that's breath control, not breathing. Okay, so that you just have to keep doing more of. You just have to keep doing more of. And the first stage of that is getting past the discomfort. Because you reach a certain point where there's no air in there, and you have to just keep going. And but yes, you just want to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. That's the only way that you really. Now you can fast forward that by only starting on half of a breath. You can do that. Gabrielle says, for what I play, I use your band scale expansion studies book. That's nice. It looks like you have great compression also in the lower notes. Have great compression. See, I don't know anything about that stuff. The compression thing is, I know a lot of trumpet players are using those words, and you guys know how I am. I work my way through all these subjects, and the compression thing never made any sense to me. And what I mean by that is the words they're using and what they're talking about doesn't match up. So the compression, there's people that talk about compression this way, people talk about compression that way. So I really don't even know what you're talking about. So I'm sorry. Gabriel says, Eddie, how do you play when you find this under a note? Okay, so we call that an accent. And that is a controversial issue today, believe it or not. And that's what we were talking about last week with my uncle. What's controversial about it is that the way I was taught is no longer taught today. I was told I was old-fashioned, that it was old school that's an accent, and the accent comes from the abdomen. Right? You put a puff of air on the note. I had someone in Dallas tell me that they don't do that anymore. They don't teach that anymore because that creates body tension. Oh my, oh my, oh my. These people are afraid of body tension, and I like what the Bible says. It says, fear not. Okay? Bible says, fear not. Don't be afraid. Don't make your decisions based on fear. So no, when we have an accent, the accent comes from the abdomen. I was taught that my whole life. It was this idea of not teaching that is brand new. I actually will do a video on it because I have a book, a wonderful book by a trumpet player with the last name of Grocock. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but he used to be in the El Paso, the Chicago Symphony, and he has 2 or 3 pages of text describing exactly how an accent should be played. There is some tongue involved, but not for most accents. So I'm looking forward to doing that video when I start making teaching videos again. I've just been so busy lately. All right, we have one more enough time for one more question or two, depending on what comes up. Any questions? All right. Well, I guess we'll close it down. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me. Thank you for your questions. We can't have this without your questions. Oh, Gabriel says, can I just make a demonstration of the accent? Okay. Yeah. So I hope that helps. You can actually see it on the recordings. If you look at the recordings, you can actually see the accent in the WAV file. If you have a wave editing software, you can pull up any of the stuff that I recorded by myself, like just me, like maybe one of the A2s or something. So Karen asks, is the V or the upside down V also an accent? Yes, that's the notation for this stuff is not consistent. Okay, so some people would consider that a short accent, like it's half staccato, half accent. Other people, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on that, because there's so many different ways that people look at it. My experience with we call it a rooftop. My experience with the rooftop is more with the jazz stuff. And the jazz stuff, it's a DAT accent, da 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 da, right? It's got a very, it's kind of long but short at the same time. So anyway, but yes, it is a form of accent. It's just that some people would actually try to disagree with me on that, but what they're saying is just splitting hairs. All right, guys, we'll sign off for now. We'll see you guys next week, I think. I'm not sure. I might have a gig, but we'll see. Have a nice weekend. Thank you. We'll see you next time. God bless you.